Hi everyone, this is Just Dan here, and welcome to my first episode of Just Dan, where I will be talking about movies, comics, video games, and TV shows. And today is just a news segment where I will take every bit of news that has been told in one day, and then I'll gather it up just for one episode, and I'll be doing that daily, doing the best I can with that. One day it'll be news, other times it will also be reviews, depending on whatever I see, whether if it's a movie, whether if I get a comic, or whether, depending on what kind of video game or TV show that I'm watching, if it's going to be a show that I'm really interested in, I will watch it with the season throughout. And, sorry, my cat is just going ape shit right now. So with all that said, I will talk about the news that has been going around that I thought would be worth mentioning to you guys. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is Spider-Gwen. Now, Kevin Feige was in an interview, and one of the things that was brought up was Spider-Man and the possibilities of future spin-offs, including a Spider-Gwen movie, and this is what he had to say. He said, well, there could be spin-offs, but the truth is our job right now is to get that single Spider-Man movie based on the MCU, and that's where our focus is. Now, I think that's an incredibly smart idea, because if you want to do these kind of franchises, you have to have who started it all. I mean, you can't just have a Spider-Man Miles Morales movie. As much as we want to see that, and I personally would love to see that, you have to have Peter Parker. You can't just bring someone into that. And same with Spider-Gwen, who I think Spider-Gwen is an incredible character. And when he was asked what does he think of Spider-Gwen, he said, no, I think she's a cool comic book character. And I don't think people are going to go like overboard saying that, are they doing a Spider-Gwen movie? No. I mean, the possibility of doing a Spider-Gwen movie, it's not far-fetched. I mean, we already have a franchise that involves a talking tree and a talking raccoon in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, I don't know, I'd like to see a Spider-Gwen movie, but right now I think that they should focus on Spider-Man for right now, and wait to see what the possibilities are going to be for the future. Next up is about Doctor Strange, and the news on that is, for a while now, they were either rumors or someone confirmed these, but they were wrong about it, or they decided to scrap that idea. But what was originally going to happen was that there was not going to be an origin story. And when it comes to origin stories, I think people are getting sick of them. For me, what do I think of origin stories in comic book movies or any kind of movie in that kind of genre? It all depends on the execution. And I think one of the reasons why people are kind of sick of origin stories is because of The Amazing Spider-Man. Now, I just want to be forward and say that I don't hate the Amazing Spider-Man franchise. I actually think it's very decent, but I understand where everyone is coming from, and when it comes to a franchise like that, and that's the problem right there, is that the studio was focused on building a franchise instead of thinking of it as a movie. But the problem that I wanted to get to, and it's not that, and the reason why I bring up The Amazing Spider-Man is because we've already seen the origin story, not just in the Sam Raimi movies, but we have seen it many times in comics and TV shows and other sorts of media, that the public has gotten sick and tired of it. And I feel like that has left a incredibly huge impact on the general public. However, when it comes to a character like Doctor Strange, I feel like you need to have the origin for that. Not only because that his origin is one of the most unique origin stories there is today, but because a lot of people don't know who Doctor Strange is. You need to inform the audience on who he is. You can't just throw someone like that there and just assume that people are already going to know who he is, because they don't. The reason why it worked with Guardians of the Galaxy was because it was mainly focused on Peter Quill, shortly on Gamora, but we also got a little bit of character development on them, and already knowing that we're going to get sequels. And these are also characters that you have to think, do we need an origin for Rocket Raccoon? Do we need an origin for Groot? And as much as we would love to see origins for characters like Drax, we can understand where he's coming from. It's not necessary. But the reason why Doctor Strange would most likely work is because it's so unique. I don't think there's ever been an origin story like his before, and one of the coolest things about him is that the best way I could describe him is that he's a cross between Tony Stark and Doogie Howser. But the news is that I believe it was Kevin Feige that confirmed that Doctor Strange is going to have an origin story in this, which gave me a sigh of relief as well, because that would have been confusing on why he wouldn't have an origin story. Now, what they could do is that they can start the movie off with him already being the Sorcerer Supreme, and that they can have flashbacks on how he became that kind of person in the first place. Now, this is all just speculation, but hopefully all the questions will be answered in time. Now, here's a question that I want to ask you guys. Are you excited for 10 more years of Transformers movies? Yeah, neither am I. Paramount and Hasbro have announced their 10-year plan for whatever the hell's going on. I mean, they already have Transformers 5 lined up, and for a while it said that Michael Bay wasn't going to direct it, and now he is going to direct it, and Mark Wahlberg is returning. I still haven't seen the fourth one yet. I know I shouldn't, but it's one of those films I don't want to see it, but I have to see it at some point. I've already seen the first three, and after the third, I was like, you know what, I think I'm done. But because I've been so dedicated to this franchise, I have to see it anyway in the first place. And it has also been announced that Paramount and Hasbro are working on a Transformers animated movie, which would be an origin story based on the Autobots and Decepticons set on Cybertron. Okay, that would actually be okay with me, and as long as Michael Bay doesn't touch that one, I think we should be alright with that. But here's what I believe his name was yes, Stephen J. Davis. This is what he had to say about it. Well, you're going to see a new Transformers movie coming from Hasbro and Paramount and Michael Bay and our other partners. In fact, we just finished, which some of you may have heard, some of you may have read, just an incredible experience. We decided that we wanted to plot out the next 10 years of the Transformers franchise, and so we got together in a room over a 3-month period of time. 9 of some of the most creative writers I have ever worked with, shepherded by Akiva Goldsman, who many of you know won an Academy Award for A Beautiful Mind and written a bunch of really great movies, and they plotted out the next 10 years of Transformers. Similarly, we're doing the same in television and in digital, so stay tuned. Transformers 5 is on its way, and 6, and 7, and 8. Well, that's just fan-tucking-fastic. This is just sad. I mean, can we just why? It's fine the way it is. Actually, you know what? It's not. Because the Transformers movies have been getting worse. And from what I heard, Age of Extinction is the worst of the franchise. But enough about that. Let's talk about good stuff about robots. That is Pacific Rim 2. Now, it has been said that this movie has been canceled. However, Guillermo del Toro is saying that he is planning on directing it and is still writing it out. But the latest news is that Guillermo del Toro wants Maisie Williams from Game of Thrones to be in Pacific Rim 2. I think Zoe is going ape shit right now. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. 1 second. Say hi. Now, Maisie Williams, I think she's a fantastic actress. Who she'd be playing in the movie, I have no idea. Maybe she would be playing Charlie Hunnam's long-lost daughter. I couldn't tell you. But with her track record, I would definitely put her in a franchise like that. I know that she's rumored to be playing Ellie in the Last of Us movie, and I hope she does get that role. So I'm hoping to God that Pacific Rim 2 does happen and someone as talented as Maisie Williams is casted in it. Next up, speaking of robots and things that are colorful, Power Rangers. As you may know, Lionsgate and Saban are teaming up to make a Power Rangers movie coming out in January of 2017. And I have been on this for a while now, and I can't tell you how excited I am for it. I've been trying to figure out who's been going to be directing it or who's going to be acting in it. And we do know that the director of Project Almanac will be helming the film. And recently, they announced a short list of actors who are rumored to be in the film. And they are Zach, Jason, and Kimberly. And here's who they are that's listed. For Zach, Daniel Zavado from It Follows, Ross Butler from Chasing Life, and the rapper/singer Brian Mark, aka Scene. Now, these are odd choices because I am incredibly familiar with the Power Rangers as well as any 90s kid should. So, and I know of the whole thing about, you know, the Black Ranger being black and the Yellow Ranger being Asian, and maybe they're changing that because of the way how we look at things now, and if someone saw that on the big screen, they would automatically judge that. But lately, whenever, I think we have all gotten past that. I mean, as soon as Adi Shankar came out with that Power Rangers short film when they brought Zack back, people didn't complain about that. I think the only thing that they've ever complained about, aside from, the Black Ranger being black, was when Power Rangers Overdrive came out, and they made the Black Ranger black again. Now, around that time, it seemed okay, but this was 2005, 2006, when that came out. So, when that came out, the people were like, okay, that's not cool, man. But I know that one of the actors that was rumored for that is Asian, and I think it would be really cool instead if they made the Black Ranger Asian and the Yellow Ranger black. In fact, they've actually done that on the show, but it wasn't Zack and Shraney. But who knows? Maybe, things could change around with that. With Jason, we have KJ Apa from Shortland Street, Austin Butler from the Shannara Chronicles, and Mitchell Hope from The Descendants. And in case you're wondering, no, not the George Clooney movie, that Disney show about, I thought I had to sneeze. No, it's that crappy Disney show. I don't know if it's crappy or not. I haven't watched it, but it doesn't look like it's not my cup of tea. But you know what I'm talking about. And as soon as I thought, it was like, oh, the dumb boyfriend of Shailene Woodley in that George Clooney movie. Oh yeah, he could get some work. Well, I was wrong about that. Any of these actors, I guess I'd be okay with that. I don't know too much about them. But anyway, now for Kimberly, we have Naomi Scott from The Martian and a newcomer, Stephanie Scott, who I don't believe are related. But one of the other names that came up that is the only name I know is Anna Sophia Robb. Now, for those of you who don't know who Anna Sophia Robb is, she was in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Bridge to Terabithia, The Way, Way Back, and The Carrie Diaries. And if she was casted as Kimberly, that one I would be okay with because I know she is a familiar face, but a lot of people don't know her as a household name. But as soon as she would become an iconic character like that, I believe she would definitely get a lot of publicity with that. Either that, or I can definitely see Chloe Grace Moretz playing Kimberly, but that's just me. So, also, they haven't put a cast list for Billy the Blue Ranger or Trainee the Yellow Ranger. They said that they wanted two newcomers to play these characters, someone who nobody knows yet. And they are hoping to get a A-lister to play the villain, and it is said that Rita Repulsa is going to be the villain, which I would hope so. I would actually, what I'd love to see, I would love to see Goldar be the main villain as like a physical threat, and Rita be the mental threat, like the one who's pulling the strings. And we would get a post-credit scene or cliffhanger at the end and get to see Lord Zed at some point to continue the franchise. I think that'd be cool. But, again, that's just me, so we'll see where that goes. And lastly, I want to talk about some TV news, and that is about a Watchmen TV series. Now, this happened recently. I was reading this and I thought, what is that? Apparently HBO is looking to do a Watchmen TV series with Zack Snyder helming it. Now, whether if this is going to be a reboot or remake of the Watchmen movie, which, by the way, Watchmen is one of my favorite movies of all time. I absolutely have to say. I watched it recently. I think it holds up. It has some of the greatest cinematography I've ever seen in film in my entire life. And I was thinking, how can you do a Watchmen show even if the movie's like 6 years old? Now, it's not going to happen now, I guarantee you that, because Snyder is so busy right now with DC. He's directing Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice and Justice League's Part 1 and 2, and he is producing, as far as I know, Wonder Woman and Aquaman, and I'm trying to figure out what would this show be about, and the one logical explanation that, I could probably come up with was that they could possibly do a before Watchmen series, and I know it's one of those comics that are incredibly mixed. Like, there are some good ones, there are others that are not so great, but the difference is, Patton Oswalt did bring this up when he was asked what he thought of Watchmen, and one of the things was that when you want to take a comic book or any kind of adaptation, you have to adapt it. And one of the things you can do is that you can take something that's based. You can make a film or TV show that's based on a certain source material, and whether if the source material isn't good whatsoever, you can still try to make it good and make it your own thing. But when it comes to Watchmen, it's hard to pull that off because Watchmen is a masterpiece. The book itself is a masterpiece. The movie is, in my opinion, is close to a masterpiece. To everyone else, it's a bit half and half. But I bet everyone can agree that it is an absolutely beautiful movie. And the thing with before Watchmen is, again, you have to adapt it. And there have been many things there have been many movies and TV shows that, believe it or not, have been better than the books. I mean, there's probably a list of them right now. I can't name them from the top of my head. I do remember Patton Oswalt did say that Jaws, the original book, is probably one of the worst books he's ever read, and that the movie did its own thing. So if they did a before Watchmen TV series and did their own thing, it would be alright. But it's hard to top the original, especially because Alan Moore is not a fan of his work being adapted. He, especially, like, not just Watchmen, but anything like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and V for Vendetta, but the only difference is that it depends on the person who's writing it. I mean, V for Vendetta is another one of my favorite movies. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, not so much. But I do know that they are planning on rebooting that, and hopefully now with the knowledge that Hollywood is letting fans direct movies for the fans, I believe we can get a movie out of that. And what do I think of this Watchmen TV series? I think that if it was on a different station, like if it was on Fox or NBC, I would be a little bit more concerned. But considering it's a certain property that's attached to HBO, and which is the station that has my favorite show. My favorite show of all time is True Detective. My favorite show of all time is Breaking Bad, but my favorite show that's currently running is True Detective. And with my favorite book that might be adapted to the channel that my favorite show is on, I would be okay with that because of its source material and its graphic nature. I definitely think it can work in that world. Well, that's all I have to say. So, I have a few questions. The first now, here's a question of the day. Well, it's not really a question, it's what I want you guys to do. Since I brought up Power Rangers, I want you to list your Power Rangers fan cast. Who should play Jason, Kimberly, Zach, Billy, and Trainee, and who should play the villains, either Rita Repulsa, Goldar, Lord Zed, any one of those. List them down in the comments below, and I will pick which one of those are my favorites. And also, I will be reviewing movies, comics, TV shows, and video games, and I want to get your guys' opinion. How should I rate these? Should I do it by number? Should I do it by 1 through 10? Or should I give it a letter grading, A, B, C, D, or F? And yeah, just let me know in the comments section below. And if you want to know more about what's going on in the world of this kind of media, all you got to do is hit that subscribe button, and I'll provide videos daily at the best I can do. So this is Just Dan saying, "See ya!"